Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, Tina and I are going to attempt the impossible. We're going to be planting the Three Sisters in a bucket. But if you're not familiar with the Three Sisters, the Native Americans were known for growing corn, a squash, and beans in the same hole. But they all had different purposes, and the beans would climb on the corn. The corn would provide a climbing place for the beans, I guess. And the squash would shade out the weeds and stuff. But there's also some misinformation out there about the Three Sisters, and that is that the corn can grow from the nitrogen in the beans. But guys, let me tell you, the beans are a legume. They lock that nitrogen up in nodules on their roots, and unless the corn was destroying the roots on the beans, there would be no way for it to use the nitrogen that the beans add into the soil. So guys, it's kind of an old wives' tale, but they did dig a hole underneath the corn. They threw fish in the hole. That added lots and lots of good nutrients and different oils and stuff too. But guys, that is what the corn survived on. The beans just used the corn for a climber, and the squash probably did help shade out some weeds. So guys, we're going to set it up in a bucket. I've seen people fail at this with good soil in the garden. So believing that we can do it in a bucket is ludicrous, but we're going to do it anyway. So guys, we're going to cut back to this footage we got. We're going to get these Three Sisters stuck in a bucket and see what happens with them. So hang on one second, we'll get them buckets ready. Alrighty guys, we're getting our bucket set up here. We've went ahead in the bottoms of the buckets. We added some wood chips from our pile out here, and the buckets have 3 drainage holes in them. They are about 1/4 inch holes, and they're about 1/2 inch apart and about 1 inch up from the bottom. And what that does is allows the bucket to hold 1 inch of water like a reservoir, and it'll wick up through those wood chips and help keep the soil moist. So we've gone ahead and we got to jump on it, because guys, we're going to be trying to do the impossible here. We've seen a lot of people try the Three Sisters garden and fail. Guys, we are going to try it in a bucket. So we're going to give it 2 attempts just to say that one wasn't a fluke, or we're going to know if we have a horrible crash and burn here, guys. So what do you say, T? Crash and burn, or will it work?
It'll work.
It'll work?
Yeah, it'll work.
Alright guys, we'll go ahead, we'll get Tina on the camera. She's going to get us set up. I'll show you how we're going to plant these buckets to grow us 2 miniature Three Sisters in a bucket.
Yep.
So hang on one second, we'll get Tina set up with the camera. We'll show you how we're going to plant these things. Alrighty guys, we're getting ready to get started on these Three Sisters buckets, and the first thing we're going to do is plant corn. And I've got some corn here. That's from our hybrid corn project. If you followed the channel for a while, we'll probably talk more about that as we go along, and we'll actually probably have some of this seed for sale in our Etsy store. But the first thing that the Indians did was they planted corn. So we're going to go ahead and get these ready to plant. I'm going to put 8 seeds in here right down the middle. So, and we'll put 2 seeds in each hole. Now, being that this is actual Indian corn, old Indian corn, it was planted in clumps originally, and that helped them maximize their use of their fertilizer, which would most people would probably know they buried a fish up underneath their corn and stuff, but it helped them concentrate their fertilizer and their watering, make the use of their watering. So we'll go ahead, we're going to plant these. We'll probably, if 2 come up in a hole, we'll probably thin it down to 1 and try to stick to just the 8 in the middle. One of the amusing things Tina and I were talking about while we were setting up to plant these was that this corn, you've seen us grow it before, this corn can easily reach 20 feet high. It's not a problem for it to reach 20 feet. So guys, these buckets are going to be ridiculously tall. We'll end up putting them on the bottom row, and we'll just see how they do from there. If the wind affects them too bad, we might have to build some extra bracing or something, but the rack itself out there helps hold the bucket still. So let me cut away for just a second here. We'll get some beans ready to put in here. We're putting in corns, beans, and squash. So let me get these beans out, and we'll be right back. Alrighty guys, the second part to the Three Sisters is beans. And the idea behind it was that the beans would use the corn stalks to grow up of. But we've got these, they're just a coated seed. These are Kentucky Wonder Pole beans. They're a very common bean. They've just got an inoculant on them. The inoculant helps them gather nitrogen from the air and store it in nodules in the roots. Now a lot of times you'll hear people talk about a Three Sisters garden, that the corn is using the nitrogen from the beans. That's actually inaccurate. The nitrogen is bound up in nodules on the roots, and the corn would literally have to, it won't release that nitrogen until the bean plant is dead. Then when the roots break down, that nitrogen is released into the soil. That's why they went ahead and planted a fish underneath their corn. They weren't counting on the beans to supply the nitrogen for the corn to grow. So even though beans are capable of storing nitrogen, that isn't what their role was in the Three Sisters garden. It was simply another source of food to eat and a way to enrich the soil after everything was done and the roots broke down in the soil. So guys, we got one more sister to go. I'm going to shut you off here for just a second. We'll get ready to plant them, and then we'll get these things covered down and get them out in the garden. Alrighty guys, for the third sister, which is supposed to be squash, we're going to be using a yellow summer squash and a green zucchini squash. So I'm going to plant 2 yellows, 2 greens, 2 yellows, 2 greens, and we're just going to have one little, we'll trim them off to where we just have one of each plant in there. But I'm going to take 2 yellow seeds, we'll pop them in, take 2 more yellow seeds, we'll pop them in over here. We'll fart around not being able to handle seed packets and stuff. Alrighty guys, then we're going to take 2 green squash, 2 zucchini squash, and we'll push those in there, and we'll push those in there. So we got we'll keep it down, we'll thin them down to 1 yellow squash plant and 1 green squash plant in each bucket if we can. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we got 5 contender beans in each bucket. We've got 8 corn and 1 of each squash. So guys, we'll go ahead, we're just going to take our soil here, we're just going to lay it on a light coat. I don't like to pack the tops of things down. I know it looks a little rough, it flattens out when you go to watering, but I'm just going to put a light coat on top of them, and we're pretty much going to call that done. Like I said, a lot of Three Sisters gardens fail because they count on the beans to provide the nitrogen. They don't. We're using this container soil, and the container soil should have plenty of nitrogen in it to grow the corn. If we see the plants starving to death, we'll water them, but I'd really like to see if the way people say, I know the beans aren't going to put nitrogen in the corn, but we're going to give them a chance. And if the corn's looking healthy and the beans are looking healthy, we'll let it roll, and then we'll examine the root system when we pull them out. We'll break these buckets down and take a look at them. But guys, there's our 2 best shots at a Three Sisters garden in a bucket, and we'll be right back to talk to you guys. Hey, before we go, Tina's going to label these up for us. She made those out of a milk carton. You can see some of her stuff in the crafting playlist on the page. You can hit our logo anywhere. It'll take you to the main page of our channel, and then on the main page of the channel are the list of playlists. And in the crafting playlist, you'll see Tina making those plant markers out of old plastic jugs. So, guys, we're going to get these off in the garden real quick. We'll be right back. Alrighty, guys. That's about going to do it for Three Sisters in a bucket, or 3 sisters in a hot tub, or something like that. But no, you don't want that. Bad. But guys, that's going to do it for our Three Sisters bucket planting. We'll follow them along, see how they do. We can always thin them down a little bit, or we can always chuck a few seeds back in it. But we won't call it a success unless we can eat some roasted corn. It's Indian corn, but you can still eat it roasted. Unless we can eat roasted Indian corn with beans and squash. So we'll bring you along for that meal if it actually works out, and that's how we'll measure our success in it. But guys, if you like the content here on the channel, we hope you'll subscribe. If you would, down by the subscribe button is also a bell. That's a notification bell. That'll tell you whenever we're going to try to get a fourth sister in the bucket. But guys, if you liked the video today, please give it a thumbs up, and leave us any questions or comments you have down below. If you've ever tried the three sisters, you can tell us about your successes or failures. We don't judge, but we're going to try it in a bucket of all things. So guys, thank you again for spending your time with us. Tina and I really enjoy getting out here and planting and sharing this stuff with you guys, and we enjoy all the positive feedback we've gotten from you. So guys, we're going to get out of here. We've wasted enough of your time. We'll catch you in the next one.